The bus stop bench felt colder than Claire had remembered. Or perhaps it was just her heart that had grown numb. She sat there, her worn canvas bag beside her, watching snowflakes drift past the shelter's dim light. 42 years old, and everything she'd built had crumbled in a single afternoon. "You can't give me a child," Richard had said, his voice flat and final. "My mother's right. I need to think about my future. I need someone else." 20 years of marriage, 20 years of trying, hoping, praying, and now, at the bus stop outside the home she'd cleaned and cooked in and loved in, Claire found herself truly alone. She pulled her coat tighter. The fabric was thin. She'd been meaning to buy a new one, but Richard always said they needed to save money for fertility treatments, for one more doctor, one more hope. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the falling snow. Claire didn't look up. The world felt very far away. A voice in the storm. "Excuse me." The man's voice was gentle, careful. "Are you all right?" Claire lifted her eyes. He was tall, perhaps 50, with graying temples and kind eyes that crinkled with concern. 3 small children clustered around him like ducklings, their winter coats bright against the night. "I'm fine," Claire said automatically. It's what we say, isn't it? Even when we're breaking. The man's youngest child, a little girl in a red jacket, tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, she's crying." Claire touched her cheek. She hadn't realized. The man knelt down slowly, keeping a respectful distance. His knees creaked a little. The sound made him human. "My name is Daniel," he said. "Daniel Morrison. We were just leaving the pediatrician's office across the street. Are you waiting for someone?" Claire opened her mouth. Closed it, what could she say? That she was waiting for a life that would never come? For a husband who'd thrown her away like a broken appliance? She needs soup. The little girl announced with the certainty only a 5-year-old possesses. "That's what Daddy gives us when we're sad." Daniel smiled softly, then looked back at Claire. "My daughter Emma isn't wrong. There's a diner 2 blocks down. Very warm. Very quiet. Would you allow us to buy you a cup of coffee? Maybe something to eat?" The unexpected table. Claire almost said no. Pride, that stubborn old friend, nearly won. But something in Daniel's eyes stopped her. Not pity, understanding perhaps, as if he knew what it meant to sit alone in the cold. "All right," she whispered. The diner smelled like coffee and memories. Daniel's 3 children settled into the booth like they'd done this 1,000 times. The oldest boy, maybe 10, was named Jack. The middle child, Lucas, was 7 and wore glasses that kept sliding down his nose. And Emma, who still held her father's hand, smiled at Claire like she was a new friend. Not a stranger who'd been weeping at a bus stop. "We come here every Thursday," Daniel explained, ordering hot chocolate for the children and coffee for himself and Claire. After their checkups, "It's our tradition." "Daddy makes traditions for everything," Jack said, but his voice held affection, not complaint. "Traditions matter," Daniel said simply. "When life gets difficult, the small, steady things, they're what carry us through." Claire wrapped her hands around the warm mug when it arrived. The heat brought feeling back to her fingers. "You seem like a good father." Something passed across Daniel's face. A shadow, brief but deep. "I try. Their mother passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm doing my best to be enough for them." "You're the best daddy in the world," Emma said firmly, stealing a sip of his coffee and making a face at the taste. Claire felt her eyes sting again. Here was a man who'd lost everything too, yet he'd built something beautiful from the ashes. 3 children who glowed with love. Traditions that held them together. A life that continued somehow despite the grief. Words in the quiet. The children finished their hot chocolate, and Daniel pulled out a worn paperback from his coat pocket. "Reading time," he announced, and the 3 of them huddled close while he read softly. It gave Claire space to breathe. When he finished the chapter, he looked up. "I'm sorry. You probably didn't expect to spend your evening with a children's story." "It was lovely," Claire said and meant it. Daniel studied her for a moment. "You don't have to tell me what happened, but I recognize that look. That's not just a bad day, that's the day everything changed." Claire's hands tightened on her mug, and then somehow the words came. About Richard. About the years of trying to have a baby. About his mother's constant criticism. About coming home today to find her bags packed, her key no longer fitting the lock. 20 years. she finished quietly. He gave me 20 years and then decided I wasn't worth it anymore. Daniel was silent for a long moment. The children were drawing on napkins, lost in their own world. My wife, he finally said, used to tell me that worth isn't measured by what we can produce. It's measured by how we love, how we show up, how we remain kind, even when the world isn't kind to us. He paused, choosing his words carefully. You spent 20 years loving someone. That's not a waste. That's a testament to your capacity for devotion. His inability to see your value, that's his poverty, not yours. An offer made softly. They talked for over an hour. About life and loss and the strange way forward appears when we least expect it. Daniel owned a small publishing company, specializing in children's books. His wife had been an editor there. Now he managed both work and parenthood with the help of his sister and a kind neighbor. It's not easy, he admitted. But these three, they're my reason for getting up every morning. When the check came, Daniel paid without comment. As they stood to leave, Emma grabbed Claire's hand. Will we see you again? Claire looked down at the little girl, then up at Daniel. He was watching her with that same gentle understanding. I need to be honest, he said. I don't have much to offer, but I have a guest house on my property. It's small, but it's warm and it's empty. My last tenant moved out 6 months ago. You're welcome to stay there until you find your feet. Claire's breath caught. I couldn't. We just met. You don't know anything about me. I know you were kind to a stranger's children. I know you've been hurt, and you're still standing. And I know that sometimes, Daniel's voice grew softer, sometimes we need someone to extend a hand when we're drowning. Consider it paying forward. Someone did it for me once. The choice to continue. Claire spent that night in a motel, Daniel's business card on the nightstand beside her. She kept picking it up, putting it down, picking it up again. By morning, she'd made her decision. The guest house was indeed small. A studio with a kitchen alcove, a bathroom with an old clawfoot tub, and windows that looked out onto a garden sleeping under snow. It was more than Claire had hoped for. Take your time, Daniel said, handing her the keys. No rush, no expectations, just a safe place to land. Over the following weeks, Claire found herself settling into an unexpected rhythm. She'd wake to the sound of children's laughter from the main house. Sometimes Emma would knock on her door asking if Claire wanted to help make cookies. Jack would shovel the path to her door without being asked. Lucas would leave small drawings under her welcome mat. And Daniel was simply steady. He'd check in occasionally, always respectful, always kind. He spoke to her like a person, not a charity case. They'd have coffee sometimes, talking about books or the weather or nothing at all. You know, Daniel said one evening in early spring, as they sat on his porch watching the children play, you're good with them. The kids, they've been happier these past months. Claire smiled. They're wonderful children. You've raised them well. We've been talking, Daniel said carefully, the kids and I, about how the house feels more like a home with you nearby. And I've been thinking, my company could use someone in the office. Administrative work, some editing. Nothing you'd need experience for, I could train you, if you're interested. Claire looked at him, at this man who'd found her broken at a bus stop and offered kindness without asking for anything in return. Why, she asked. Why have you been so good to me? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Because someone was good to me once. And because, he met her eyes, because kindness doesn't need a reason. It just needs a willing heart. The lesson of seasons. 2 years have passed now. Claire works at Morrison Publishing 3 days a week. The other days, she volunteers at a women's shelter, offering the same hand she was offered that snowy night. She and Daniel haven't rushed into anything. They're friends, first and foremost. But there's something growing there, gentle and patient, like the garden that bloomed again in his backyard. The children call her Miss Claire, though sometimes Emma slips and says, Our Claire, which makes everyone smile. On Thursday evenings, they still go to the diner. It's their tradition now, all 5 of them. And Claire has learned that life doesn't always turn out the way we plan. Sometimes it turns out better in ways we never could have imagined. She learned that worth isn't measured by what we can give others, but by who we choose to be when everything is taken away. That kindness is a choice we make every day. That family isn't always blood, but sometimes the people who sit with you in the cold and say, Come with me. Let me help you find your way home. Richard never did understand what he lost, But Claire understands what she found. Not a replacement for what she wanted, but something entirely new. A life built not on expectations, but on grace, on showing up, on the quiet miracle of people who choose to be kind. And on winter evenings, when snow falls soft outside her window, Claire sometimes thinks back to that bus stop. That moment when everything ended, or, as she knows now, when everything truly began.